Alright mates, how's it going? The Worgen starting zone video needs a bit more time, unfortunately, so here's another Chronicle video for you instead. In today's video, I'm covering Secrets of Ulduar and the Titan's Failsafe from Chronicle Volume 3. So let's get! Whilst the war in Northrend continued, the old god Yogg-Saron was still building his army from the depths of Ulduar. The chaos outside was definitely making him feel warm and fuzzy in his special place. Not only were the Horde and Alliance in conflict with the Lich King and his Scourge, they were bloody fighting each other as well. It was brilliant. However, Yoggi knew that it was only a matter of time before its presence was discovered, and it wasn't wrong. One of the founders of the Explorers League, Brann Bronzebeard, stumbled upon the secret. He'd come to Ulduar to find out a little bit more about his race's ancient history, and he discovered a lot more than that. A growing army of iron dwarves and Vrykul, loyal to some ancient evil deep within. So he bloody cheesed it. He barely escaped with his life and immediately notified Ronin of the Kirin Tor. Ronin then passed this message on to the Alliance and Horde. He hoped they could set aside their differences, even for just one more battle. But when Varian Rin, Warchief Thrall and Garrosh Hellscream gathered in Dalaran to discuss this, things didn't go so well. Garrosh and Varian almost immediately started punching each other in the dicks, and they would have killed each other if Ronin hadn't intervened. Although these commanders really hated each other, many of the Alliance and Horde followers recognised that ignoring the darkness in Ulduar would probably be a terrible idea. So members of the Alliance offered to escort Brann Bronzebeard into Ulduar to uncover its mysteries. They infiltrated a wing of the fortress called the Halls of Stone, which is where the Forge of Wills lives, but Sionir the Iron Shaper, one of Keeper Loken's mates, was waiting for them. And I'm not going to go into all the fight mechanics and shiz this time. Basically, the Alliance fought their way through the Halls of Stone, beat the shit out of Sionir, and cut off Yogg-Saron from any further reinforcements to his iron army. Meanwhile, the Horde didn't just sit around fiddling with their belly buttons. A handful of champions travelled to another of Ulduar's wings called the Halls of Lightning. This is where Keeper Loken lives. The Horde were nearly struck down when they came face to face with the fallen Keeper, but they weren't, so it's fine. In his final moments, Keeper Loken gave the heroes a cryptic message. His death would herald the end of Azeroth, which was a little bit disturbing. The Horde was so concerned by this, they actually secretly reached out to the Alliance heroes who'd assaulted the other wing to see if they knew what the balls Loken was talking about. And this gave Brann Bronzebeard the goosey boots. From what he'd learned of Ulduar so far, he was now convinced Loken's death would have dire consequences for the entire world. But he didn't have all the answers. The only way to learn more would be to journey into the heart of Ulduar itself. So the Explorers League and the Kirin Tor implored heroes from both the Alliance and the Horde to join them in assaulting the stronghold. And since this request came from neutral parties, members of both factions were like, yeah, alright. But I'm sure they regretted that decision pretty quickly, because the assault on Ulduar was actually a lot more difficult than they thought it would be. Upon entry, they were immediately faced with the remnants of Yogg-Saron's iron army, and they had to ride tanks and stuff, and that wasn't the worst of it. The champions also had to fight against the other mighty keepers who had fallen to the old god's influence, and a whole bunch of bloody faceless ones as well. And after all that, they still had to defeat an old god. As they entered the prison chamber of Yogg-Saron, the old god tore at their minds with visions of madness, betrayal and suffering. Several of them went a bit mental and turned against their own allies. But it's fine, because one of them was wearing a special shirt called Martin Fury, which let them basically just one-shot Yogg-Saron. I'm just kidding, that's not canon, that's just a thing that happened. Some guy got his account hacked and asked Blizzard to restore his lost characters and items and stuff, which they subsequently just ignored. And then sometime later, the same guy opened another ticket about a loot problem they were experiencing. A GM answered that ticket and also addressed the account hack from months ago. And the guy's character and items and gold and stuff were all restored, and all was right in the world. However, they also randomly gave him a special shirt called Martin Fury. He couldn't wear it because it was plate, so he gave it to his guild leader. And they all assumed it was a gift from Blizzard as an apology for taking so damn long to restore his stuff. And then that guild went ahead and used all 14 charges of the shirt and one-shot a bunch of raid bosses, gained themselves some great loot and a bunch of achievements. And all was right in the world, until they all got banned. So I guess the moral of the story is, Blizzard doesn't give you free super-powered shirts as an apology for bad customer service. You bloody idiots. Anyway, the champions worked together as they had against Cthulhu, and prevailed. Yogg-Saron was defeated, and its control over Ulduar vanished. However, things weren't over yet. Brann Bronzebeard had discovered something during the assault. Keeper Loken wasn't lying when he'd said his death would mean the end of the world. His demise had triggered the first steps of a failsafe mechanism designed by the Titans. The Forge of Wills wasn't the only enchanted device they'd built. Another device, called the Forge of Origination, was embedded in the ground far to the south, in a land called Ulduar. But the Forge of Origination had a very different purpose. If Azeroth ever succumbed to corruption, the machine's energies would be released and purge the world, and then it would do a hard reset and trigger a process to create a new generation of life. The Titans had conscripted somebody to oversee this procedure, a constellar called Algalon the Observer. This entity would come to Azeroth, have a little look-see at the state of things, and then make the final decision on whether or not to trigger the Doomsday thing. So Brann quickly led the champions to another hidden chamber within Ulduar in the hopes of stopping this from happening. But to their horror, Algalon had already arrived, and made his decision. Old gods have corrupted this world far and wide, so I'm going to go ahead and do the Doomsday thing. Azeroth's heroes fought bravely against Algalon, and the Constellar was really bloody confused by the whole thing. As far as he was concerned, the failsafe had already been activated. This fighting was futile, and a complete waste of everyone's time. But the champions didn't back down. They fought for their world, their homes, and their loved ones. And in the end, Algalon yielded. It was one of those, "you've made me see the error of my ways by repeatedly hitting me with swords" type moments. Azeroth was not the first world that Algalon had purged, and he'd never even considered that life on those planets may have actually wanted to survive. He decided to allow the mortals to fight against Azeroth's corruption themselves, and turned off the failsafe. And then he buggered off. He didn't go far though. He decided to stick around and watch over Azeroth from a distance for a little while. And we're leaving it there! In the next Volume 3 video, I'll talk a little bit about the Argent Tournament, and maybe some other stuff, I don't know. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, all of that bollocks. And all there's left to say is, thanks for watching, and see ya!